Good day, ladies and gentlemen. You've heard me talk about evolutionary theory and why I think it's completely bogus on this channel before, but who am I? I'm just some guy with a webcam. Well, in this case, I'm actually using an iPhone attached through continuity camera on my laptop, but you get the point. The point is that I'm just some guy, and sure, I can read some books and tell you what I think is true, but you need to hear it from somebody who has a little bit more credibility than I. So, recently, Father Ripperger, he did a series of lectures, I think it was with the Kolbe Center, which was on, I believe it was on Sensus Fidelium, the channel Sensus Fidelium. Shout out to Sensus. Many people have listened to their sermons over the years. I know I have. And they basically go after this idea of evolutionary theory and whether or not it is compatible with Catholicism. And I'm here to tell you that, at least in the explicit sense of this sort of Darwinian evolutionary theory, there was no possible way to reconcile this with Catholic teaching if we're being honest with ourselves. Now, there is a strain of evolutionary thinking within Christian circles called theistic evolution. Often this is called something like intelligent design. And there are some very good scholars within this realm who do their best to sort of smash a hole in the narrative of atheistic evolution, and they do so by showing, at least in their minds, that there are various miracles that pop up, miracle after miracle. So they look at something like the Cambrian explosion or other events in the alleged geological and evolutionary record, and they say, well, this would have been impossible because we don't see what's necessary for this strict evolution. Therefore, God must have intervened at a certain point, and here is the evidence of God. And while it's a noble attempt, and I understand that, I believe there are many holes with it, and so does Father Ripperger. And here he actually picks apart the idea of theistic evolution using theological and metaphysical grounds. And we're going to get to that in just a second. But first, we need to say thank you to our sponsor, the TKR store. Check out the link in the description. We do have our frankincense oil, which is backed by popular demand. Many people were asking for this. This little ditty came all the way from Oman. Getting that stuff into the countries like getting nuclear plutonium. So please check that out. It's a very exclusive product. We also have our lanolin balm, which many tradesmen have used and said it's helpful with their cracked hands in the winter or working in the mechanic shop and so on and so forth. Also, we do have our beard products available, and check out this quick little snippet from our sponsor. Go to thekennedyreport.com and visit the TKR store to see our new products, Kennedy's Choice Beard Oil. You can use this on your beard to help with alleviating itchiness, dryness, and irritation of skin. And don't worry, no animals were used in testing this product except for myself. Use Kennedy's Choice Beard Balm for a softer, healthier, manageable beard that is made with natural ingredients. And trust me, I know a thing or two about beards. Visit thekennedyreport.com and check out the TKR store. The links for this are in the description. You see, we're here to make beards great again. So if you're looking at donning a face sweater like this, as I always like to joke, I actually shaved this morning, but our products are so effective that they'll get you a beard like this within a matter of hours. I'm kidding, but they are pretty good products. In any case, what does Father Ripperger have to say about theistic evolution? Well, let's take a look.
Theistic evolution cannot be tenable insofar as creation is an act of God and terminates at a certain point. And thus the theistic evolution is subject to the criticism of violation of the first metaphysical principles. We're going to see this as we go on. Also, given what is revealed, the theistic evolution is untenable insofar as there has to be constant miracles. That's what I'm going to deal with later. St. Thomas observes that the first perfection, which is the integrity, so it's good, in its wholeness, was in the first institution of things. It's in the very beginning.
So just pause quick here. What Father Ripperger is getting at is that there's a nature, there's a reality to how God creates. And God is perfect being. I don't want to get too much into the weeds here because some of the realists and the ultra-realists and the phenomenologists and the whoever's are going to get after me and say you weren't specific enough with your language. But as far as we can understand it, God's perfect. Everything God does is perfect. There's a completion to it. And I think this is what Father Ripperger is trying to get at. So this idea of this, continual development and unfolding and flowering of this potential in the created reality doesn't really seem to fit. And there's more reasons as well, as he's going to get into here.
For St. Thomas, the cessation of creative activity on the side of God and the fact that creation was good means that creation of God was integrally good. So that basically means that when God created, he doesn't mess up, and he doesn't do it half-baked, and he doesn't do it in a manner that requires natural and physical evils. When considering the perfection or good of God's creation, one is left with a twofold distinction. The first has to do with the perfection of the individual parts of creation, in which in themselves they are all perfect in their institution, that is, when they're created. So in the very beginning, they're brought into perfection. The second is how all the individual parts come together to constitute a perfect creation. The principle of the integral good indicates that all the parts must be good in order for the thing to be considered good in its totality. Therefore, the evolutionary hypothesis is untenable for the following two reasons. One, according to the evolutionary hypothesis, the initial creation of God was not integrally good as to the totality of creation because it was incomplete.
This is really interesting. I think we can break this down a little bit further. What he's basically saying is, if God creates things that are good, and good is not just a descriptor of things you like. I have a friend who's at a traditional seminary, and he's saying that the rector and the professors are trying to recalibrate the way they even use language. They'll say, did you like that recording of Beethoven? They'll be like, oh, that's really cool. And the professor says, no, it wasn't cool. It was good. Good has a meaning to it. It explains that something has an order to it and was created with a certain perfection or fullness, which makes it this total goodness in its creation. And when we look in the scriptures, obviously, if we look to Genesis, in the beginning, God created X, Y, and Z, and it was good. Good doesn't mean half complete. Like, for example, if my kids, I say, go clean up the shoes in the mudroom, or go put away your bikes in the garage, or something like that, and they sort of just throw things around and move things out of the way, they'll be like, did I do a good job? I'll say no. And they'll say, well, why didn't I do a good job? And I say, because you didn't finish. If it's not finished, it's not good. And I think that Father Ripperger is getting at something really important here by saying that.
In effect, the gradation of being, there's also called the principle of gradation of being, had gaps which indicated the totality of creation was not integrally good. God did not create a good creation. That's what they're telling us. The parts were also not integrally good insofar as they were evolving, and we must say mutating in various degrees and steps without being complete in themselves. So putting aside the fact that the mutation is generally bad for something, the fact is that God would have created something that is constantly striving for completion, not in him, but in the completion of themselves. This means that creation did not possess the good integrally. So what does this basically mean? It means that God, if you look at how it's revealed in Scripture, and if you actually look at every single thing that he gets involved in, whenever he is the sole cause, or whenever the secondary cause does not block him from perfectly acting through him, he acts as an integral cause. Everything, so when he acts, God is pure goodness. He's infinite goodness. He is infinite perfection. That means when he causes something, there is never a lack of perfection or good in the nature of that thing. He is an integral cause. And so to assert that he is not an integral cause, and by basically saying that there were defects in the beginning that had to be worked out, is quite frankly against the very nature of God. It's against the very nature of metaphysical reasoning.
Yeah, I think Father Ripper is going to explain this a little bit further here, but my initial impressions. So, for example, one of the reasons why I've never been able to believe in theistic evolution or evolutionary theory from a perspective of Catholic theology is because we have to believe that death is a bad thing. Death is repurposed, so to speak, by Christ, and to die is gain, as St. Paul tells us. So yes, death is our sort of pathway into eternal life, assuming we die in a state of grace. But death is actually a bad thing. Death is the result of what? Of sin. So we know that this idea of things dying is actually an imperfection. So it'd be very strange and very backward if what we have is God creating his creation, which is imperfect or contains basically contains some sort of evil to it in order to create a good. This is, I don't know, this is very strange. I don't really understand how this works. So I think Father Ripper is going to explain this a little better here.
Death, as Hugh said, only enters after the sin of Adam. To use death indicates that God would not be an integral cause in bringing things into existence, since things would be imperfect. So God always acts as an integral cause. By the way, this is how we know that the Catholic Church is the only divinely established means of salvation. How? It has all four of the causes. One, Holy Catholic and Apostolic. No other religion, none, has any of those four causes independently of each other integrally. None of them. None. And this is how we know that the Catholic Church is from God. The point being is that this problem of teaching God, saying that God uses evil in order to bring good out of it, that's post-fall because of us. But to say that he introduced things and he created things in a non-integral cause, A, it doesn't hold up metaphysically, and B, quite frankly, it's the height of impiety. It's basically ascribing to God imperfection in his activity.
Yeah, I think this is the argument that got it for me. With this idea, when you think about evolutionary theory and you think about theistic evolution, basically God is going to use death, disease, mutations, or whatever in order to bring about the creation. And there's no dignity to this. I'm pretty convinced by it. I think Father Ripperger is onto something here. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. This has been the Kennedy Report. Until next time, God bless.